It'll be very different 8 years later. She will be the nominee of the Democratic Party. Let's talk about this week's convention with our roundtable, joined by Donna Brazile, Democratic strategist, Matthew Dowd, our political analyst, Congressman Keith Ellison, Democrat from Minnesota, Congressman Tom Cole, Republican of Oklahoma. And Donna, you get to go first today because there's all kinds of trouble on the convention floor. You're also vice chair of the Democratic National Committee. You just heard Bernie Sanders say right there that Debbie Wasserman Schultz should resign over those emails, over that bias against him. Will she, should she?
Well, first of all, welcome to Philadelphia. I'm very excited to be here. This is going to be an exciting convention. We're not only just having 18 million tiny cracks, we're actually breaking the glass ceiling. So now that I've gotten that, first of all, as vice chair, I went over yesterday to see the Sanders campaign, and I apologize. I think the allegations, the emails, the insensitivity, the stupidity needs to be addressed, and we are going to address it.
So what does that mean?
It means that this first of all, this is not just a one-day leak. There will be a substantial number of emails that I understand that will be leaked over the next couple of days, weeks, months, because it was not a 1-month breach or a 2-month breach. Come to find out, the Russian hackers, and I have no conspiracy theories in my hands. I don't know.
Robbie Mook's had some.
Yeah, they've been involved. They were in our system at the DNC for well over a year, so we will learn more. Will some people have to step down, be removed, resign? I'm sure at the end of the day, yes.
Keith Ellison, you're a supporter of Bernie Sanders. What should happen?
Well, I'm with Bernie on this. I mean, we're focused on getting rid of Donald Trump, making sure he is not the president of the United States. I agree with Bernie. I'm disappointed to read about it. But at the same time, you know, we do have the worst Republican nominee since George Wallace. We have somebody who is so dangerous in a number of ways, not the least of which is his attacks on the press and his pulling press credentials. The First Amendment says freedom of the press. He attacks the press regularly. So I'm really kind of focused on the job at hand, but I am disappointed. But I'm not surprised. But at the same time, you know, I just have to keep trudging on, organizing people to turn out the maximum number of votes to defeat
Just
Donald
the
Trump.
beginning here in Philadelphia. Congressman Cole, you just came from Cleveland Republican convention. Was it a success?
Well, first I want to correct my friend. George Wallace was a proud Democrat and ran for the Democratic nomination, was on that stage down there.
Thank God he got rejected and lost.
Well, that's fine, but let's be clear on the record as to whose party he belonged to. In terms of the convention, yeah, it was a success, quite honestly. This idea that it was doom and gloom, I actually agree with Mr. Manafort. It wasn't. But more than that, percent of the country thinks the country's on the wrong track. 56% thinks that the Democratic nominee, Hillary Clinton, should have been indicted. So I don't think this is a time for sunshine and roses, morning and again in America kind of convention. And I think this fit the serious mood that the country's in and the desire for change that it's expressed.
In his answer right there, he just laid out the two of the big challenges for Hillary Clinton this week.
Yeah, absolutely. My fear is that we're going to have that the American public's not going to get the porridge that is just right. I think the Republicans spent way too much time emphasizing that the country is off on the wrong track and that the people believe the American dream is dying or dead. That's a true statement. The Democrats have to be careful they don't swing the exact opposite way, which is saying everything's great, it's all going well, keep us going, we're part of the status quo, let's just keep it going. The public's in the middle, and the public wants to hear, yeah, it's a problem, understand our fears, understand what's going on, but lead us to something more hopeful and optimistic and inspirational. That's what they're looking for.
Getting that balance right, Donna, is a challenge.
It is a challenge, George, but you can say that there's a lot of pain in America, but also have solutions, and to talk about how to make America stronger, safer, etc., without what I call persecuting Hillary Clinton. That's last week we heard the Republicans persecute her. And they didn't prosecute a case, they persecuted her. And it was personal, and it was mean-spirited. And you know what? There came a point when it was just it was the only thing that united the Republican Party. They've done that for 7.5 years.
Besides being mad at Ted Cruz.
Oh, well, well, don't throw him our way. But I think this week Hillary Clinton has a great opportunity to show the American people that she understands that pain and she has a way to solve it. That I think she can do that.
Keith, did she make the right first step with this pick of Tim Kaine, as we were talking about with Robbie Mook? There have been a lot of progressives, not necessarily you, but a lot of progressives who thought he wasn't the best choice.
We don't. has started his career fighting for fair housing. Tim Kaine has a strong progressive record. Now, look, there's some things that people had difference of opinion on some of the things he said about trade, but he now is squarely against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, has made that position very clear. So I'm satisfied. I feel like...
so this movement to nominate someone else isn't going anywhere?
I don't see it. No, I don't see it.
And George, there are no minority reports on the challenging superdelegates. We have a commission. Look, we have reached compromise, we, meaning the Democratic Party, on the platform process, on the rules. Today the Credential Committee will meet. We are coming together. And I want to say one thing. I want to correct myself. I don't like to throw people under the bus. I know members of the DNC staff. I know many of these individuals involved. They are good people. They were not always biased. They have worked to make this a good convention.
I want to pause just on the two VP picks. I actually thought the Tim Kaine pick was a very good pick. And of course, you can see in Hillary Clinton's attitude on that stage that you saw her at peace. You saw her full of joy. And
lightened her up a little bit.
It looked great. The interesting thing to me about these two picks that were done, both Mike Pence and Tim Kaine, is they were picked by two people with rather large egos, but they both picked people that are sort of viewed as humble servants, humble servant leaders in the course of this. What I'm fascinated to see is these are two men of both of deep faith, but from opposite sides. One a social justice Catholic, the other an evangelical fundamentalist, and they approach
Although
faith.
He started out as a Catholic.
He was a Catholic. Sometimes he describes himself as evangelical Christian, but they both are deep of faith, and I think it's a great conversation in America because so much of the faith conversation has been co-opted on one side. Now we have somebody that views faith in the grays and somebody that views faith in the black and white. Somebody views faith as saying the kingdom of God is here and now. Somebody that views faith as the kingdom of God is in the future and over there. And I think that's a great conversation.
And Congressman Mike Pence really was well received in that hall on Wednesday night, but he got overshadowed by the Cruz fight.
He did a little bit, but I think Mike is very reassuring, frankly, to a lot of traditional Republicans. We know him on the Hill. He's well respected on both sides of the aisle because, as Matthew says, the kind of person that he is. Same thing true, by the way, of Tim Kaine. I worked with him on Gabriella Miller research bill for kids with pediatric cancer. We both have the same position on the authorization of the use of military force, something Congress ought to do. So I think they're both going to add a lot of debate. But getting back to another point, if we're worried about the DNC being hacked with servers, what's the odds that the Russians hack something sitting in somebody's closet, their own home? I think this is going to be a very difficult question going forward for Democrats to deal with.
It has been a difficult question for Hillary Clinton so far. Looking ahead now to this week in the lineup going forward, Matthew Dowd, you heard both campaigns talk about their electoral map. Do you understand when Paul Manafort talks about expanding the battleground to a lot of these traditional Democratic states, is it possible for them to scramble this coalition and play in places that Republicans haven't played for the last 25 years?
Well, I think it's very possible for them to scramble their strategy and just not know exactly what it is. I think they're in la-la land if they think they're going to carry Connecticut or a lot of those other states. This is going to be fought fundamentally, unfortunately, over about 8 or 9 states in the course of this. And I think it's going to be the same 8 or 9 states that we fought this over in 2012, 2008, and 2004, and in 2000. That's the course of this. It's unfortunate because 90% of America is left out of that conversation. People in California, people in New York, people in Texas. In the course of this, this map is not going to be fundamentally scrambled. What's going to be scrambled is a bit of the demographics. That's what's going to be slightly scrambled.
Right.
Yeah, speaking of that, a lot of the young supporters, especially for Bernie Sanders, and I've spoken with a lot of them this week, they're just not inspired by Secretary Clinton.
But they are inspired by $15 a union. They are inspired by the pension reform. They're inspired by real financial reform and breaking up the big banks. They are inspired by the agenda, the most progressive agenda that the Democratic Party's ever seen. And I'm telling you, the young people, when they think about the fact that we're going to do something about college debt, they're excited about that. I think they're excited about the right things, the issues. That's what we should always be fired up about. And I think that's where we're going to, you talk about the map. There's also state maps. And Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton are united talking about down ballot races and making sure we take some state legislatures back. They're going to be excited about that. And so I tell you, there's going to be Minnesota, my state, the Republicans hold the House. We're very, very focused on taking it back in the state of Minnesota. And that's a story all over the country. So I think there's plenty for people to be excited about.
I think it's pretty hard down ballot, though, for either candidate, to be quite